Hello, fellow meat beaters, wherever you were in the globe. I'm glad my parents do not understand English. But anyway, the topic today is about debunking various famous arguments against masturbation, so you can feel slightly better about yourself while you're doing it. Let's start with the very common one. It is bad because it is sinful. God forbids it. And you know definitely where this would take us. It would take us definitely to the Oedipal dilemma. Okay, is it actually bad because God says so? Or because it is bad intrinsically? If it is bad because God says so, does it make it actually good if God says the opposite? Or if masturbation was intrinsically bad, it means that there is a moral system even independent of God. Religious folks say that sexual pleasure is only permitted within marriage framework. So this sort of self-gratification actually goes against the divine intent of sexuality. But this actually doesn't make any sense. If God wanted us to invest our sexual energy exclusively on marriage, He should just have made us this way. He shouldn't have made the possibility of self-gratification. This is a flaw in design. Everybody knows when designers design a particular machine and they don't want it to do X, they simply don't equip it with the ability to do X. Therefore, when God actually creates you with this capability to self-gratify, He should definitely expect you to use it. So based on that, it is either God designed us and He's playing with us, or we're not designed at all, as the evidence suggests. Argument number 2. It corrupts spirituality. It corrupts your soul. First of all, there is no soul. There is only a brain. We have no evidence of the existence of any of these metaphysical entities that is proclaimed to inhabit our bodies. We have no evidence that there is something else except for our bodies, what we can test and what we can show. So let's just say that it corrupts purity. What do you mean? I beat my meat, therefore I'm no longer pure? What is pure? Pure is something, it's a state which is related to your character, a state which you are devoid of any bad behavior. But how did you actually deduct that this behavior is actually bad? It is the very thing that we are trying to prove. This whole purity thing carries unsupported presuppositions that I see no evidence or good argument to believe it. Argument number 3. It violates the natural purpose of sex. Oh well, if we're gonna talk about nature, this becomes self-defeating because nature equipped us with the ability to masturbate. So if this behavior was actually against nature, why does it exist? It's the same argument with God. If God equipped us, if God wanted us to not do it, why did He equip us with it? If nature wanted us to not do it, why did it equip us with it? You presume that nature is to have actual sex, but nature doesn't actually say that. Nature says whatever happens is natural because it happens within nature. Something which is unnatural is something simply that doesn't exist because everything is within nature. So whatever happens is actually natural because it is within nature. Some people say that sex actually distorts the goal of sex, which is bonding and creating a family and having children. But how do you actually prove that those things are actually a good? For some people, they are definitely a bad. I could tell you that you might find some person who was better off masturbating alone in his room than when he has a wife right now and has a bunch of kids. Bad and good are subjective. And of course, we could say that some person is better off right now that he have a family than when he was masturbating alone in his room. But we cannot generalize this rule. This whole idea of reproduction, bonding, and the family is contingent on our minds. It is us that actually call those things good. Not because they have this quality of goodness embedded into the fabric of the universe, but it is just us that call them like that. It's a subjective, cultural, constructed thing. Argument number 4. It undermines self-discipline. And here I actually agree. It does undermine self-discipline. Of course, if you got somebody who masturbates alone in his room the whole day, That definitely would affect his discipline, of course. But I have only one problem. Scrolling in social media does the same thing. Playing video games does the same thing. Eating junk food does the same thing. But we do not go easy on masturbation as we go easy on scrolling social media and all the other different things that do the same thing. You could play video games the whole day next to your family. Nobody would say shit. But beat your meat the whole day next to your family. That's a different type of category. People scroll social media their whole day, beat their meat in 10 minutes, and all of a sudden they feel that their life is not going as they want. All of a sudden they feel that they have betrayed themselves, that they are wasting energy, that they are wasting time. They scroll on social media the whole day. They beat their meat 10 minutes, and all of a sudden they feel awful. This shows you the bias that was put in our minds since childhood, both culturally, socially, and religiously. Of course, playing video games the whole day, scrolling social media the whole day would have a much tremendous effect than just, let's say, beating your meat for a half an hour. But we are not treating them in the same category. We are still treating masturbation harshly. If something is ruining your discipline or ruining your life, it would be the things that you do more, that you invest more time in, like scrolling social media, playing video games, and such. Not masturbation that you do once in a while. Why do you feel worse after masturbating for 10 minutes rather than feel worse after spending 10 hours in video games? Why is the contrast? Why is the difference? This gets back to psychology and cultural values. Argument number 5. It encourages lustful thinking. Okay, I agree. But do you know what encourages killing or homicide thinking? Violent video games. But you're not treating them with the same manner. You're not treating them with the same harshness. A gamer plays Battlefield the whole day, Call of Duty, Won't he actually start having killing thoughts? The same thing with masturbation. The gamer is fine, it's okay. The society wouldn't have a problem with a gamer. But with a masturbator, you're disgusted of the idea of a masturbator, that this person is a masturbator. Cultural values. Cultural values, my friend. Argument number 6. It causes addiction. You know what else causes addiction? Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Why are you not treating them the same? You scroll in TikTok in a bus and nobody would approach you and tell you, oh, this causes addiction, therefore it's bad. But you beat your meat in a bus and you find yourself in a cell. I'm not telling you to beat your meat in a bus. I'm just saying if the argument behind masturbation being bad because it's addictive, TikTok is also bad because it's addictive. It shows only that there is some overlaying background reason towards masturbation being bad rather than all of those arguments. Something that has to do with culture, psychology, religion, social norms, traditional values, and such. But all in all, subjective. All I'm saying is, if it's subjective, it could have been otherwise. We could find a culture or create a culture where masturbation is not condoned, when masturbation is being done in a bus regularly. Because there is no underlying objective principle that says it's actually bad, rather than just our subjective personal intuition. Number 7, it increases anxiety, the feeling of guilt and depression. I do agree, yes. It makes us feel anxious because we feel that we have actually abandoned who we are. Not who we are, sorry, but what we're supposed to be. What the others or society or our environment expects out of us. But fuck that. A bunch of apes telling me what to do? The fuck? It causes depression because once you attain the orgasm, prolactin, which is a hormone, gets produced in your brain, which lowers testosterone. And after that peak of dopamine, your brain, craving homeostasis, wants to balance your internal state and lowers your dopamine a lot. The higher dopamine, the lower serotonin. because your mood keeps on fluctuating, because your brain desires to get the same amount of dopamine that it experienced earlier. And upon doing that, your brain relies solely on dopamine to feel good. Serotonin is no longer in the equation, especially if you're doing that in a dark room without having enough sun, without getting out, talking and socializing with people and such. And of course, if you keep on doing something that you internally, subconsciously deem to be bad because you were taught to, you would always feel depression and guilt out of it because you still think that it's bad and you still think that you are violating some type of divine expectancy or social expectancy. And of course that would lead to depression because your expectation doesn't meet your reality. Argument number 8. It drains motivation and ambition. It lowers your drive and your discipline overly. And I definitely agree. If you constantly give yourself some short-term pleasures, your long-term pleasures stay on hold. Your brain doesn't care about that long-term pleasure or that short-term pleasure. It cares about pleasure. If you give it pleasure, it will always postpone the type of pleasure that you do not actually invest a lot of effort in. This is why it is actually easy to stay and masturbate in your room rather than go to the gym. If you keep giving yourself these short-term pleasures, why do you think your brain shall invest effort towards long-term pleasures? Why would he invest effort towards something that he already has? But this pleasure is different, but your brain doesn't segregate. You beat your meat and all of a sudden you're too tired to study, too tired to lift weights, too tired to work, and so on and so forth. But I will say it again, this is the same thing with social media and junk food, but they don't meet the same reaction. Because rather this is something intimate. Intimate, okay, but why do you condone it? When a person does it, he does it in the comfort of his own room. Condoning it because it's intimate doesn't seem to be rational. Oh, you're such a loser. You masturbate. Okay, but you fuck your wife too. Oh, this is how it's supposed to be done. Who told you that? God. Okay, alright, my God told me otherwise. Would you say nature? As much as nature designed you or made you evolve to have sex, it has also made me evolve to masturbate. There is no difference. Argument number 9. It weakens masculinity. Alright, let's see the definition of masculinity that society wants. Like, let's see the typical human that society deems as being masculine. What you'll find out, you'll find a slave instead of a man. You'll find somebody who is provider, responsible, takes everything in, doesn't complain, ready to sacrifice his life for the others, provider, generous, productive. A person that would always prioritize society rather than himself. Well, fuck that, okay? Just let me masturbate. Just fuck masculinity. Okay, I don't identify as being a man, alright? LGBT, whatever. No, society keeps on creating these definitions, creating these norms, creating these values, alright, that prioritize its prosperity, but not definitely the prosperity of the individual. You would say, if the society prospers, it means the individual would also prosper. This is the fallacy of composition. Just because the whole is characterized with a value doesn't mean the part is also characterized with the same value. As long as you provide, protect, sacrifice for society, you're a man and you are loved. But boy, I do not care about that. Take that, shove it up your ass, and give me some lotion. Argument number 10. It discourages real relationships. This is also subjective. Because I could tell you, we could find somebody who was better off masturbating in his own room rather than being in a relationship. We could see, we have a lot of examples of relationships that sent people to jail, of relationships that made people commit suicide, of relationships that made people bankrupt. Just presuming that masturbation is bad because it doesn't make you find a real relationship, it doesn't follow, because relationships as well could be good, yes, but at the same time they could be bad. It depends on the subject that we are addressing. It's entirely subjective. Argument number 11. It replaces intimacy with simulation. Okay, I agree. Most of people who masturbate, women and men, would rather do the real thing. But at what cost? If I would do the real thing and it would give me some grave consequences, no, just let me simulate. We might find a lot of people that have the ability to have the real thing but prefer to masturbate alone in their houses because the cost of the real thing is tremendous, has a lot of bad consequences that they would rather to stay away from. So this rule doesn't actually always follow. Of course, a lot of people would want to have the real thing, and most of people do that actually because they can't get the real thing. But there are exceptions to the rule. Sometimes relationships are simply tremendously negative that one might simply just prefer to stay alone in his house and do it himself. It always depends on the type of intimacy and its consequences. Argument number 12. It supports exploitive industries like porn, explicitly. I agree, I would never actually encourage that, but I would not encourage it the same thing that I would not encourage eating at McDonald's and spending your whole day scrolling in Instagram. But people put those things in different categories and shame one more than the other, even though they have the same consequences. Argument number 13. It distorts sexual expectations in relationship to perceived bodies and such. If you always keep watching those movies, you will have a distorted expectation about the type of body that you would expect to find in your potential partner. And this would give you a dilemma because you love your partner, but at the same time you cannot be sexually active with her or him because you have distorted your bodily expectation. The same thing goes for Instagram. People keep checking the influencers' social media, influencers that only post good pictures in their wall, and all of a sudden you feel that your life is horrible just because you see some type of star who only posts his good moments in his profile. Suddenly you're wasting your time, suddenly you have bad friends, suddenly you don't like your family anymore, suddenly you don't like your work anymore. It's the same thing. You distort your expectation, and that negatively affects your reality and how you live inside it. So based on that, if you think porn is bad based on that, you should also think that Instagram is bad. I know there are different layers into analyzing each one of them, but anyway, that would do for this point of the argument. Argument number 13. Oh, maybe it's 14. I don't know. I lost count. Anyway, this argument says that it is an empty pleasure and this pleasure is not guided towards a high meaning. There's no meaning. You would tell me that there is a difference between charity and masturbation. Of course, in the surface level of observation, they definitely have a difference. But for the brain, it's the same. They're all just pleasures. You get pleasure from philanthropy and you get pleasure from beating your meat. This makes you a good person, this makes you a bad person, but the society dictates that. And who gave the society the authority to label things? In the level of society, morality is relative to culture and temporal context. We can find two societies coexisting. One of them deems this a bad, one of them deems the same thing a good. Which is right? Which is wrong? Nobody is, because right and wrong are metaphysical categories that cannot exist independent on the human mind. But anyway, being a nihilist, I don't think that there is actually any meaning to the world or to life. We create our own meaning and live it. That's pretty much it. You prefer the pleasure of growth, the pleasure of socializing, the pleasure of family and building? Definitely yes. But it is only your brain that rewards you that way. Because the brain simply rewards any type of behavior that leads you to climb the social a hierarchy because he knows the better job you get, the better education, you will be able to have more chance of having sex and having children. There is no meaning except what you label it as. That's it. Argument number 14. It encourages escapism. It means that when you masturbate, you actually escape your problems rather than confronting them. But isn't that actually what people do with alcohol? Isn't that actually what people do when they go to the pharmacy and take pills? This is exactly what they do. It is only that you actually rely on an external substance, but I rely on a self-sustained behavior. That's pretty much it. The reason why masturbation is bad is not because none of those arguments. It's because it has a religious, social, cultural aspect into it, which is deemed to be negative. None of those arguments. People have bars to drink together, but they don't have places to masturbate together. Because of a basic social value that we give to the behavior fundamentally. Argument number 15, it leads to more extreme behaviors. I do agree, yes. If you excessively do it, it would do the same thing with drinking, video games, social media, and things. I'm not saying that this is actually should be good, should be normal, should be encouraged to do because it's just like the others. But no, I'm just saying that if you're gonna condone this, you better also condone the other thing. But you're not doing the same thing. You're condoning one and not the other. Perhaps you do also condone video games and social media and such, but not with the same level that you condone masturbation. This behavior could only be harmful if it was taken to an extreme, but the individual feels bad about it even if he does it once a week or once a month. He still feels bad upon doing it because he was subconsciously fed into thinking that it is a bad. But anyway, I think that was the end of that list, and I'm just saying, as much as you say that it's not harmful to play video games for 1 hour after work or eat junk food once a week, it's the same thing with beating your meat. Of course, if you could stop doing it once for all, it would be great, just as much as stopping doing it for social media and junk food and all of those things. But you decide actually to treat yourself from now on then. I'm only saying why masturbation should be indifferent. As we have seen, all of those arguments do not prove that masturbation is actually bad. They only try to justify some fundamental internal feeling about the thing, just like homosexuality. If you ask somebody about homosexuality, he would give you a lot of arguments. Oh, this is bad because they can't have a family, they can't reproduce, a lot of people would do like them, diseases and shit like that. But those things could easily be countered because there is a fundamental disgust about the behavior. There is a basic, negative emotion towards the very activity. All of those arguments are just trying to justify the position rationally. But our position against masturbation is not rational, but a matter of fact, emotional. I'll let you beat your meat, guys. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one.